Hello everybody, thank you for joining me in the class today. Today's a pretty cool class because we're starting off a new course on sketching or sketchbooking. So it's going to be quite exciting. Today is going to be like an introduction to sketchbooking. So you're going to learn the basics, the equipment we need and some basic techniques and the different types of sketches that you get. So I'm really excited. It's going to be awesome fun. The first thing that I usually get asked is, what's the difference between a sketch and a drawing? So let's start off, go and take a look and see what is the difference. Hi guys, welcome to the live class today. Feel free to ask me questions as we go along. Alrighty, so this over here is a sketch. And this over here is a drawing. So you can see that a sketch is a lot looser than a drawing. You can almost think of it as being more incomplete looking. It's got a lot less detail to it, and it's a lot quicker to draw. So why would you want to sketch this versus draw that? There's a lot of reasons, and a lot of very valid reasons. The first one would be, let's say you want to just plan out or figure out the composition of your next drawing or painting. Then just doing a few little sketches really goes a long way, and it's quick for you to test a few little things as opposed to just zooming along and trying to do something like this and then decide halfway along, hold on, I don't like this bridle, I need to move it or I want to change it. Then it's not so easy. But with a sketch like this, you can quickly erase that and change it or change the design on there. You know, you can do lots of things with a sketch that you can't do with a big drawing. Then sketching is also fabulous for practicing your eye-hand coordination. Just drawing what you see and getting those proportions and dimensions correct is not as easy as you look. It takes quite a lot of practice. And doing sketches is great for that because it helps you with so many other things when you are drawing and painting. Then you'd also want to sketch when you just want to do maybe an outline for an actual artwork. So let's say, for example, you just have, let me get to an example of that. You'd maybe just have this. So you'd sketch that out, and then you take this and transfer that onto your final drawing paper or onto your canvas or whatever. So you get all your rough work and sketching and scratching and erasing and all the dirty work done over here. And then you transfer this onto your clean final drawing paper. Like this, you know, using transfer methods. Like a scratched piece of paper that's got lots of graphite on it. Let me get one of those and show you what that looks like. It's like here, you've got a piece of graphite paper that you've scratched, or paper that you've scratched graphite over to cover it. So this forms now basically a transfer paper. So you can take this, your drawing paper, put this guy upside down on there, and now you put down your sketch, and you transfer just the outlines that you need, and that way you get a nice, beautiful, clean drawing with no scribbles and scratches shining through on the final drawing. All you have is a nice, neat final drawing. And then obviously, when you're sketching, another great time to use it is when you're out on holiday and you want to just quickly sketch what you see. Maybe you see a beautiful landmark and so on, then you want to sketch that out. So those are the main times when you're going to sketch versus draw. So having said that, because you're doing stuff like planning or just practicing your eye-hand eye-hand coordination, I need to practice my mouth-hand, my mouth-brain coordination, eh? So when you're practicing your eye-hand coordination, things aren't necessarily always coming out perfect. So when you're doing a sketchbook, give yourself that gap to make mistakes, to have things out of proportion and so on, because that's what you're doing. You're practicing and you're honing those skills, because let's face it, that's what it is. Sketching is a skill. All right, so let's go over and take a look at some of the equipment that you would need when sketching. So the first thing is you're going to need something to sketch on. So you get a multitude of different sketchbooks, and they all serve a different purpose. A small one like this is great for going when you're out just in plain air sketching, or when you're going on holiday and you don't have much packing space. This guy's perfect. You can even keep one of these guys in your car in the cubbyhole. Just chuck it in there with a few pencils, and you can sketch at any time, maybe on your lunch break and so on. Then you get bigger ones like this. They're nice for, in studio, and I'll show you some ways how you can use them in standing and in plain air kind of situations as well. These guys here, they it's called a draw and wash, or a one that can handle wet media. So these are all just dry media, so you can only do maybe like ink sketches, but you can't do like ink washes and stuff on here, because it's going to bleed. It's not meant for that. Where this guy here, he's got like a coating, so you can do ink washes like this sample you can see on here with watercolor or ink or whatever, and including your drawing. And then you get other guys like this which have colored or toned paper. So they're great for, charcoal and those kind of sketches, because now you can use different colors on them. So the toned one generally is, you choose something that's got a neutral color to it, so that you can go darker and lighter. Alright, so you'll notice there's also two differences between these guys. This guy's got a hard spine like this, and this guy's got a nice ring bound. I'm not a big fan of these guys here, even whether you're working in a studio or not. Let's just open him up over here, just at an empty spot. Some of them, like this one is okay, he lies quite flat, but a lot of them don't. You get this bowing over here, so that, maybe I can show you. Can you see it naturally has a bow because of the gluing and the binding over there. So they don't work that well because of that there. So I'm not a big fan of them. When I'm using these guys, I'll open it like this, and I'm going to carefully use a craft knife, and I'm going to cut out this page over here, and then I'm going to use the page loose on its own. So I only use this for in-studio type work. I always use the ring bound, because you can now open this guy up, and let's maybe grab a smaller one, easier to demonstrate on. You can now open this guy up, and he lies 100% flat. And even better, when you're working outdoors, you can flip him backwards, and you've always got a perfectly flat surface. So my recommendation is always buy yourself the ring bound sketchbooks. So that's that. As far as pencils are concerned, honestly, you don't need much. There's a 2H pencil and an 8B pencil, and that's literally all I use when sketching. Usually, I will also often take this guy with, which is it's a really dark pencil. It's a 9XB, but I've cut him to a chisel point. Don't know if you can see that. I don't know if I can. How am I going to show that? It's probably about the best I can show you like that. So the way you cut it with a chisel point is you just take, let's just get some scrap paper here so I don't mess on the table. You take a craft knife and you open him up, and now you hold the blade and then you push the blade with your thumb, and you're holding the pencil steady, and you're trimming him like this on the one side. Turn him 180 degrees, and then you trim him on the other side, and you trim him nice and gradually until you get yourself a nice chisel point like that. So the idea with a chisel point is that it gives you the ability to make nice sharp lines 1 minute, and then turn him 90 degrees and do nice shadings the next minute. So that works really great for sketching. What I like, because I've got this as a 9XXB, it's the darkest pencil I could get, is because he's a chisel point and you can do those shadings and stuff. I use this sort of for filling in detail, where this is just for the planning sketching phase. But there's other things you can use, not just pencils. You could use, we've mentioned the charcoals. So there's charcoal pencils. You get them in 3 different grades, light, medium, and dark. So you usually buy them as a set of 3 like this. And then a white charcoal. So these guys help you do your initial sketching, and there's your highlights. And if you want to do more detailed work, then you can use mechanical pencils. They work great as well. So what I've done is I've actually got 2 different types. The one with the blue back is just an HB lead in there. And then with the black little back piece, I've got a B lead in there. So I can draw soft and I can draw dark using the 2 different mechanical pencils. This is nice for like really small, just small sketches or little detail work inside sketches. And then needless to say, you can use a pen, just a standard old pen. And if you want to get fancy, you want to go into some pen and ink work, I mean that's also part of sketching, you can go and buy yourself some fancy pen and ink with nibs and so on. Right, I do have a few other things. A brush. A brush is also handy just for getting some shadings and stuff in. And by the same token, I will often use just a bit of tissue paper or paper towel, something like that. Also handy. You just put once you've done some shading or a little bit of cross hatching and stuff, you just want to get a bit of a shade, you just put your finger in and you just blend it away. Then of course a sharpener is handy, and so is an eraser. So just a regular eraser, and if you want a kneaded eraser is also quite handy. So it's great to have those guys. And then next up, a ruler. A ruler is nice if you want to do just straight edges. So often what you can do, let's say you're working outdoors, so you don't necessarily have the ability to take a ruler with you, then you can use a pencil as a ruler as well. He makes a nice little impromptu ruler. Then I've got 2 other little gadgets, which are also really nice to have, especially when you're working in plein air and you want to work a little bit more accurate, and that's a proportional divider. So the way a proportional divider works is you've got little settings over here that you can move to the left and to the right, and that allows you to enlarge or reduce whatever you're seeing. So let's say, for example, let's just grab let's grab, say, this drawing over here. So let's say that's, for example, the real item. Now you can use your proportional divider to do measurements. So you can maybe measure the height of the head over there. So now you take this point over there and that point over there. So now you've transferred that height over there. So if you were working on a bigger sheet of paper, you can just use that measurement as it is. If you're working in a smaller book, then you can use that over there. Because obviously as you adjust this, that's also now adjusting himself. And that's where these guys come in. So let me loosen him up and just move him along. So if I move him this way, it gives me a tighter ratio. So it's maybe 1 here, and it'll be 3/4 over there. And if I move him the opposite direction, let's move him way out to the end. That's when you really want to make something very bigger or very much smaller. So I've got that over there, which is 1, and now over here is maybe only 10%. So that's great for enlarging and making things smaller. But it's also nice for other things. You can use this to check your angles as well. So you hold this one here, horizontal. Let's just put our drawing nice and straight. So you'll hold this guy horizontal, and now I want to measure that angle over there. So now I can do this. Do that. And then let me just put that down. Then you can tighten this lock nut over here to lock in that angle. Now you can go over to your sketch pad, put him down also horizontal, and there you go. You've transferred that angle 100%. So this is a great tool, especially when you're learning, because it just helps you with those angles and to get your sketches going sooner. Then the next little gadget that I've got, which is really handy when you're working in plein air, it's called a composition finder. So what you do is, I'm going to show you how to make your own. You make one like this. That's the proportions of your sketch pad. So now as you move this, you framing things. So that helps you find something nice to draw. You know, always when you're outside, everything is really wide. Let's just go to there for a second. You've got, here, there, below you, all the way around you is things to see and to draw. So you don't always know what to do. So this little composition finder helps you zoom in and pinpoint little things that you could draw. You can maybe, let me just get this, maybe decide, that little plant over there. And you can now, by changing your angle, moving closer and further away, you can get different views. So I think you get the picture. Like with this one here, I could maybe, if I'm further away, see if I can do that to the camera, you can get the whole horse in. Or you can zoom in and decide, you know what, I'm just going to do just the face. Or maybe you can even do just a mouth study. Just by moving this around, it gives you all these different options. And that makes your life quite easier. So you'll often see artists outdoors, and they take the one hand like this, and they'll take the other hand like this. And also, and moving around, and they're testing different compositions. It's the same thing. That one is now just, here, it's quite random. You haven't got a long paper like that. Usually it's more something like this, and then you end up square, and it's pretty imprecise. Where this guy over here, you can get yourself a nice exact sketch. So as we go along, I'll show you exactly how to use this as well. later on in the course. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as the actual equipment is concerned that you need. You don't need much more than that. All right, so now I want to also just chat about sketching posture. You know, when you're here in the studio, it's or at home, it's really easy to just pop your paper down on the table, you know, and maybe have your computer standing over here or a photo next to it that you're sketching from, and that makes it really easy. You know, you could have your sketch pad over there. Let's see if I can zoom out a bit further. You can have your sketch pad here, and then you've got your reference over there, or you know, the screen right over here. So it's very easy to reference, or you can put it on this side to get those angles right, and so on. It's very easy to do that. But when you're working outdoors, it's not quite so easy. So you need different ways how to hold your paper. So the first one I want to show you is, let's go to this camera over here. So you can use this when you sitting like this. Maybe you've got a camping chair or whatever, or even when you're in the house and you're working. So you take your sketch pad and you put your hand underneath it like this, and then the other part rests here on your arm. So now you can sketch, and you see it's got quite a bit of stability at the back. So because you've got here your hand and your whole arm supporting it. Or if you're using a smaller sketchbook, you can just hold it normally, because you've got your whole hand behind there like that, and just this little bit of your thumb is holding it. So that gives you also that stability that you need. Or if you're holding it like this, same as what you do with your phone. you put your pinky underneath there, and your thumb is giving you stability there, and your hand the fingers are giving you the stability that you need over there like that. And when I'm working outdoors, what I also like to do is, if I can, I'll take my cooler box with the cool drinks and lunch and whatever in it, and I'll put my feet on that. Now look what happens. I use this now as a table. So I've got my whole legs supporting this. So it's as good as a table, and it's super comfortable. What I really like about doing that is, when you're working, you looking between the drawing and the reference material, right? So you're constantly flicking your eyes up and down between the two to compare. So if you're working like this, you got to look up and look down, look up and look down, and it's quite jarring. Eventually you start getting whiplash. But it's also, there's a second thing about it, is the more you look, the more you estimate your angles wrong when you come back down to your sketch, because there's so much of a change. Where if you're holding your book up like this and you're sketching, then all you're doing is your eyes are just doing that. It's a small little movement, and that helps you estimate those angles, because there's a very small angle change. If you're working like this, and I'm now estimating, let's say, that angle of the screen over there. So now I'm seeing it at that angle, and I'm drawing it at that same angle. So I don't need to translate it from this angle down to that angle over there. They're the same. So it gets rid of a lot of error. So that's why you work like this. Or if you can sit like this with your legs up, it's less pressure on your arm and stuff. So it's really easy to sit and draw like that. So I always take myself a chili bin or a cooler box with the cool drinks and stuff, but it's actually for my feet. Alrighty, let's go back to here. Then of course, if you're in a car, sit in the driver's seat, then you can put it up against the steering wheel, or you can sit um, in the passenger seat and just move the seat well forward. Then you can put it on the dashboard. And if you get these non-slip mats, then you can you'll find that you can put your whole sketchbook down on that dashboard, and it won't slip. These little mats, these guys, they work great, because now you can put this on the dashboard, and you put your sketchbook down there, and he's not going nowhere. He stays there. You do find though that what happens is it tends to, because you folded it back, so then it tends to do this. So just get yourself an elastic band to put around there. So that keeps this side in one piece, or together, and the ring binding keeps that piece together, and that gives you a nice steady surface to work on. Alrighty, now let's go back to these guys over here. Now I want to chat about different sketching techniques. You get two groups of sketching techniques. You get loose sketching techniques and you get detail sketching techniques. Which one you're going to use is going to depend on two things. The first one is, why are you drawing? Are you drawing just to practice your eye-hand coordination skills? Then you just need to draw a few lines, because all you're trying to do is get the outline and the proportion and angles and those things correct. You're not looking for any details and stuff, so it's pointless using any detail techniques. If you're just planning a drawing, then maybe, doing any kind of detail will also often be maybe pointless. Or you can add just some detail into it, just enough, like this one over here would be a kind of good example of that. If you're planning a drawing, you've now done your basic sketch, and then you're just adding in a few details to get to where like the highlights and the shadows and those things are. And then again, let's say you're on holiday and you're trying to just capture the scene that you see. So sometimes you've only got 30 seconds to quickly capture that scene. Then literally just a few lines is all you've got time to do. So you can only use quick, loose techniques then. But if you've got a little bit more time, then you can get to this stage, and then you can gradually build it up a bit further. Right, so today we're going to really look a lot more into those loose techniques. So the first loose technique that you get is called a notan. So let me see if I can get further in on that guy. So what a notan is literally just a black and white sketch. So we will be doing some notan sketches later, then that will sink in and you'll see what it means. All you're trying to do is find where's your lights and where's your darks, and usually you're using that to test compositions and stuff, to see whether you've got good balance in your painting or your drawing. So the way it works is a light item and a dark item have weight. The darker it is, the more weight it's got. So what you're usually looking for is a bit of balance between the lights and the darks. Guys, just give me a second. I just want to see if this thing is focusing 100%. That looks better, right? So for example, let's say you've got, there's your drawing paper over there, and you're looking to do a scene. If it's got lots of, let's say, darks over here, and maybe it's got another dark patch over here. So now all you're doing is looking at the lights and the darks, those objects and the shapes and stuff. If you've got something like that, can you see it looks quite off-center? It feels like this image is hanging over this way because there's so many random dark things over there. So what you'd want to do is look for something that you can add maybe to the drawing. Maybe a tree or something on this side over here to add balance. So that's where a notan is going to help you. And you can see just by doing this, a notan is super quick. There's no detail, there's no nothing. But they're fabulous for doing little tests and planning. Great in the planning stage. Okay, then the next one is called a tonal sketch. So what you've done there is you've basically just drawn out the basic shape very quickly, and you can see it just thumbnail size. And then instead of trying to do all sorts of shadings and stuff, all you've done is looked at where's your lights, your midtones, and your darks. Can you see? Dark, midtones, and lights. And you've just quickly scribbled them in, literally scribbled. And that's a nice way for you to get your head around, especially a complex drawing. Even like this horse, I mean, it is quite complex if you start looking at all the details and stuff. Let's bring that guy back into view. You know, you get there's a vein and here's all sorts of little rib defects and so on. And hair details, and there by the eye there's all sorts of little wrinkles and whatnot. And it's easy to get yourself stuck looking at all those details. So doing just a quick little tonal sketch like that forces you to reduce the drawing down to its absolute basics. And that's where the tonal sketch helps you. It helps you get your head around what you're about to draw. Then one step further is a quick sketch. So now you've basically, you've maybe done a tonal sketch, and now you just continue and you build onto that. So now you've started adding a bit more detail into it. Alright, so another loose sketching technique, and this is one that we're also going to practice today, is, let's get an example of that, is using shapes and angles. Maybe I can do just a little sample first. Using shapes and angles to plot out or sketch out whatever you're planning to draw. So, for example, with the horse, you've got a bit of a triangle happening there by the neck, and you've got also another triangle happening by the face, and here on this area you've got a bit of a circle over there. And then you go and take a look, how does this guy differ from your standard shapes? So what you usually do is you reduce your objects down to circles, squares, and triangles. Anybody can draw a circle, anybody can draw a square, and anybody can draw a triangle. So by reducing your scene down to these basic shapes and variations of it, you know, like rectangles and ovals and longer skinny triangles and stuff, or trapeziums, you know, by reducing it down to basic little shapes that are easy to draw, you can quickly sketch out what you want, and then from there on you go ahead and refine the drawing. And then as far as using angles are concerned, you'd say, okay, I've got the neck at this angle, the head's at that angle, the tip of the face is at that angle, the ears are at this angle, and so on. That little bottom piece is at that angle, the bottom of the mouth is that angle, and so you continue, and before you know it, you've got your horse sketched out. Alrighty, so when are you going to use these loose sketching techniques? So we've just chatted about the notan, your tonal value sketch, using your shapes and angles to sketch out what you want. You're going to use that when you're experimenting with different compositions, when you're starting the details of a drawing, in other words, getting those basic outlines and stuff in, and of course when you're just practicing your eye-hand coordination. That's when you're going to use those kind of things. But then you can take it further and start adding detail to it. So the first detail you've got is line weight. Yeah, I think I'll go back to here for a second. So let's say we've now sketched out that horse. So line weight works like this. You've got the thicker the line and the thinner the line gives you different weights. There's a lightweight line and that's a heavyweight line. And the same would happen with a thin line is lightweight and a thicker line has got a heavier weight. So when you first start with your loose detail work, you're working with light and thin lines because it's sort of a planning stage, right? But then to get more detail, now you start adding a bit more weight to these guys. So now you're more happy and you're more certain of the actual the positions. So now you can go ahead and you can sort of lock in the different shapes and stuff that you've been plotting out using your loose lines. You know? So that line weight over there sort of finalizes it. And you can, more often than not, you just leave those initial sketch lines in when you're doing sketches. You don't erase them. You just leave them. You just add that extra line weight to finalize what you were actually drawing. So that's the one. And the other one is obviously shadings. So just using shadings to sketch in what you want. Maybe let's go over to another drawing. Let's go over to this guy over here. He's actually got pretty much a bit of everything in him. Let's go wider there to get that whole drawing in. Alright. So here you've got shadings. Can you see? So you've got overlapping strokes which are giving you the image that you need, and even to an extent the mountains, the hills in the back here have been added. You've got a bit of shading here to finalize these poles and sticks. Can you see the line weight added to the outside? Then you've got cross-hatching. I don't have cross-hatching over there, but we do have cross-hatching, say, over here. So this is when you've got lines that you've overlapping, like this, close together for light areas, further apart for light areas, closer for darker areas, or cross-hatching to get even more variety in your tonal values and textures as well. And then another technique is scumbling. So scumbling is literally just scribbles. So I've used scumbling in that tree over there. Can you see it's just scribbles? So let's put maybe that guy down over there. So this is scumbling. It's just wiggles and squiggles. That's all you've got. Guys, if you're enjoying the lesson so far, please don't forget to like the video and leave a comment in the comment section as well. It just helps YouTube know it's a worthwhile class. Alright, so when are you going to use shading and hatching and line weight and stuff to add detail to your sketch? And you're going to do that when you're happy with your composition that you've done. And you want to just start finalizing or defining things a bit better. That's when you're going to use these more detailed techniques. Alright, so what can you sketch? You can literally sketch anything. Start off by sketching your surroundings. Just draw whatever look around you now and see what can you sketch. Sketch just random stuff around the house, something really random like this tape. Just lay it down there and just start drawing it. Look for your shapes and stuff and sketch it out. Look for your highlights and your shadows and your angles and your shapes. Just start drawing. Head out into the garden and go and draw pots and flowers and the house. Maybe even just a little bit of the trellis work to get the shading right and so on. Maybe you're on holiday. Sketch the landmarks that you see, the places that you go to. Or you can even sketch photos. Maybe you've taken some nice photos and you want to make some sketches of them. Get out the album and just start sketching them. You can use online photos, free photos like on Pixabay or whatever. You can just scroll through, grab some photos and just sketch whatever pops up. Just sketch it. That's a really great exercise, that. You can even sit at night while you're watching TV. Let's go here. You're sitting there watching TV and the news comes on. So now you've got a presenter sitting there reading the news. So you grab your sketchbook and you start sketching the presenter. Or maybe an article comes on about orcas or whales or something on National Geographic. You grab your sketchbook and you start sketching some of those. Draw their face or an eye or whatever that's visible at that time. What's nice about that is often when you're sketching from TV, that's perfect timed exercises because things move quite quickly. You're not going to have like a photo that it's static and you've got 5 minutes to draw on it. When you're drawing on TV, you've maybe got a minute to 30 seconds, maybe even 10 or 20 seconds just to quickly scribble down the basics and get the essence of the scene. So it's super good practice to sketch from the TV. Other things that you can do, I'll just go through my list over here, is you can draw still lifes, landscapes, animals, you name it. Absolutely anything you can draw, you can sketch. Stuff that are traditionally really just sketches is life drawing. You go to life drawing classes, you'd have a model and they're doing different poses for different times and you're sketching what you see. Great practice to get your eye-hand coordination, the angles and proportions and all those kinds of things right. You can sketch from your imagination. Maybe you've got an idea in your head and you want to maybe make it or paint it or draw it or just show somebody else what you were chatting about, what you dreamt. You could sit down and just sketch out roughly what you've done. Another one is anime and cartoons. Once you've got the basics, then to change, once you know where everything goes, for example, on a portrait, and you can sketch that out in your sleep, applying a few rules to change it into an anime character or a cartoon character is not so difficult. Sketches are often used in children's books. People making pots of money using sketches in children's books. So they'd maybe do a pen and ink sketch, add a few little watercolor washes on it, add a little bit of a story to it, publish it in a book, or in a real book, or on Amazon, via Kindle and those kind of places. Make megabucks. And that's all. It's sketching. Then you can also make money if you get used to sketching in life. You can have a model sitting there. You can go and get yourself a stall at a market or event, and you can sit there and charge the guys to sketch out their portrait for them. So there's lots you can do with sketching. It's really a super exciting and a quite a broad subject. So I think that's enough chatting. You must be tired of seeing me. Let's go and do some actual sketches. So I think for a start, let's maybe just head out to Pixabay. So let me open up Pixabay. Let's go to there. And then we'll just find a few things and we'll sketch them today. And as we do, you'll learn some of these basic techniques that I'm chatting about. So for today, all you need is just some scrap piece of paper. What I'm using today is just some photocopy paper, just sheets of that. I've got a 2H and an 8B pencil, and that's it. Maybe, just maybe, we'll use an eraser. I doubt it. Alright, so let's just take say this first little that tree over there. Let's go and take that. I'm just setting it up here on my video display. Just give me 3 seconds, just so that I can overlay now this photograph over our drawing paper. Yeah, I think let's go to there. Alright, so I want you to work along. Take your piece of paper, reference the image from the screen, and work along. So what we're going to start off with is notans. So a notan is only black and white. So just make a little block. Notans are just little samples. And draw it roughly estimate your paper size, more or less. Alright, so let's take a look. We've got the ground is dark, and that seems to be sort of at maybe a third of the way up. And then we've got a tree that's in this vicinity around here that's also dark. Everything else is lighter. So you're going to just draw out those shapes. Block in the dark and leave the light. And there you go. There's your first notan done and dusted. So what can you now do with that notan? Maybe you can play around and see what is this thing going to look like if I maybe move that tree up. So there's my ground. Maybe I move that tree up here to the center. What would that look like? Or maybe what if I add an extra tree, maybe a tree coming into the picture? A large one like that. Or maybe what if I add some ominous clouds here at the top? So there's maybe a dark cloud over there, and there's a lighter cloud over there. Can you see how quick it is now to play around? And I can see doing that is going to make this guy, is pushing him off balance. That guy is perfectly in balance, but you'd need a cloud there and a cloud there to keep this thing in balance. You couldn't just put one cloud over there. It wouldn't look good. Let's do that because it's so quick. There's our tree. There's our ground. And there's our one cloud. Can you see? That doesn't look good as that. It just feels wrong. This one feels right. That one feels off balance. But without the tree, he felt okay. He was on that sort of third over there, and that's why he worked nicely. So, you know, those are the kind of things that you can play around with a notan. So that's easy peasy. Yeah, I think you've got the hang of that one. Nice way to test balance and composition and positioning of items. Alright, the next one. So let's write there notan so that we can remember. The next one is just tonal sketches. So let's just stick with that. Let's make this one maybe just a little bit bigger this time. Let's move it to there. So again, I'm just going to estimate the proportions of my paper. Now I want to get a feel for the depth and the dimension and the stuff in this scene here. So I've got that there's on a third. Now I've got my tree, he sort of overlaps this a little bit over there, and I've got a basic shape. So can you see I'm just sketching out the basic shapes, but I'm trying to be a little bit more accurate than a notan, because now we're testing other things now. That needs to move up to there, and we've got some trees and bushes in this vicinity out over here. Then we also do have some clouds running like that. Alright, so let's go and test and put in the tonal values in this guy. So we know we've got, and all I'm going to do is just use scribbles, just coloring it in. So this guy here is quite dark, so let's color him in. He's dark. Here, this foreground, it's darker here and lighter there, so maybe we'll add a bit of shading over here. So I'm starting off hard, gradually laying off the pressure on the pencil. So that's giving me that depth over there. I can see the sky is darker and going lighter. So let's start with that. Go lighter and lighter. It's quite light over there. Then it ends, and then we've got some bushes over here, so maybe we can just add, but it's not as dark as they say, so we'll just use like a mid-tone little scribble over there. And now this is allowing me to test things. Can you see? Those guys are now instantly too light. So I know I need to go, when I do my final drawing, I need to make these things a little bit darker. And with the clouds, those clouds are lighter than the background, so I'm going to take, say, my eraser, and let's just pull in. Just erase that cloud over there, erase some of these clouds over here, just little random shapes in those directions. And that's given me a good feel for this guy over here. So I can see now I need to go nice and dark on this to get good, to make him the focal point. I'm happy with that. That sky needs to go reasonably dark as well, so that I can see my clouds. Otherwise I'm not going to see them. And I can go well dark in front here as well to get a nice little looking in effect. So just like that, it's taken me literally what, 30 seconds or a minute, and you've got the basics of your drawing sorted. Let's maybe even make this little test and see what it look like if we make this bottom even darker. See if those trees give you a better effect. If they stand out nicer. Yes, they do. Alright, so now we know. Keep this guy dark, darken that up reasonable. So as you're drawing, you're comparing these tonal values on your final drawing. Let's see. Let's go and maybe play around with a different picture. So let's go back to Pixabay and let's see what else is interesting. Let's do one or two more tonal sketches. Yeah, here's a nice one. Let's take this one. Let's take this. So let me just crop that up so I can put him on the screen for you. Alrighty, let's pop that over there. Okay, so this is more of a rectangular scene. So let's do that. And let's see, we've got a little horizon over there, and we've got a road that's doing this. So it's narrower at the top, going broader over here. And we have a bit of a bush over there, and then we've got a figure that's over there. So maybe we want to now test and see whether putting this figure at a different place would work better. So maybe we'll do that. We've got that. We've got our road. And let's maybe put the figure over here. So it's obviously closer. It needs to go bigger. Let's maybe add a bit of a shadow over there. Let's do another one at say mid distance and see what that looks like. So can you see how quickly we're able to compare these guys? So let's maybe put a mid distance figure in between size around there. And let's maybe now test, let's say one with those ominous clouds that we've got in the background over there. So we've got really dark clouds. So let's put some of those guys in. There's a row of clouds running along there. A row of clouds running along there. So it's a dark, dingy day. So it won't really have much of a shadow. So let's soften that up. Leave that over there. And let's maybe see what happens if we put a... No, we've got that. We need something over here. So maybe we'll add a tree in over there. Maybe just a few lighter clouds. Maybe something over here. And let's see. We've got quite a bit of stuff there. Nothing really over here. So let's add maybe some mid-distance clouds in over there for balance. Or maybe let's put a tree in over here. We quite like the tree. And let's maybe add another figure. Maybe it's a couple toddling out into the sunset. So that's light and there's a bit of a sunset effect. So now I've got three completely different compositions. Which one do you prefer? I quite like this one, I don't like this one, and I quite like that one too. But I think I'd maybe bring these guys now just forward to that position over there. That was pretty cool, being able to just quickly play like that, eh? Awesome. Let's see. Let's maybe, we've been fiddling with the horse. Let's maybe take this horse. Let's see how I can do that. Maybe I can find a photo of that. Cool. So I'm going to bring up this horse, and let's go and sketch that out using angles and shapes and stuff. So just give me a few seconds to adjust the view over here, so I can bring all that stuff all up in one go. Okay, so there's our horse. Let's grab a new sheet of paper. Yeah, let's put him over there. Alright, so what I'm going to do, let's start off with angles. So what you want to do is just start with anywhere, literally anywhere. Start with any angle. So what I'll often do is I'll use the edges of my paper as a starting point. For example, if I take a look at the top of the neck, where it leaves the paper, is over here. It's roughly around that center mark. So I'll give myself a little mark on the paper over there. That's my center mark over there. Here at the bottom where the neck by the leaves over there is about a quarter. So let's break him into a half and into quarter. So it's roughly around maybe a bit more, roughly around that vicinity over there. So this is where your proportional divider would come in quite nicely if you have a photo. Because now you can take your photo, and now you'll literally measure with your proportional divider over here. And then you just take a look on your sketch itself, on the paper. Let's say I'm doing it on a small sketchbook like this. So now I need to make this thing smaller. So you're going to adjust. Sorry, I'm going to turf that overlay for a minute, because we know you're working with these two. So I'm going to take that measurement over there, and let's adjust these guys until we're happy with how big it's going to be on our sketchbook. So I'll just keep this thing loose for now while you're testing. Take that over there, and that's about a half. So we need to get it on half the page over here, hey? So let's try them on, say, it's got little marks over there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we'll try them on the 5th mark. So let's get that size over there. Bring him across. Is that half? It's nearly, eh? So let's try him on the 3rd mark. Moving one on. Okay, let's try that one. Get your size. So it's just a little bit of fiddling. There, no, one down. Alright, so once you're happy with your size, now you can lock in this, those little grooves over there, lock them in. So now I can go and measure. I've got that guy over there, and this guy is now proportionally smaller, and he's fitting exactly out on my drawing. So I can quickly go and take that measurement. I can take this measurement, put him down. Take all the other measurements and put them down, and so on. So that's how the proportional divider helps you a lot when you're doing these angles and stuff. But for today, we're just going to sketch it out 100% freewheeling. So can you see I'm using my 2H pencil and not the HB, or the 8B, sorry. Now I'm going to take a look. If I draw a line from here along that neck, and I extend it to where it meets the end of the paper. So I'm going to point. It's probably, you know, if I look on the drawing, or on the photograph, if I'd extend that line, it's probably around here, right? Around this point over there. So what's that? Also about a quarter of a way down the page. So it's probably something like that. So there you go. Now I've got my first little angle sketched in. And the way I sketch that line in is not with one long solid line or with a ruler or anything like that. I sketch it in with overlapping lines. So can you see that? I'm just doing this. So that line is a little bit higgledy-piggledy. Sometimes you put in a line like this, and sometimes a little bit like this, but all together, eventually, they form a median. And it's that median that you're going to finally sketch out. All right, so then let's take a look at this guy over here. If I draw a line past this neck until he hits the edge of the paper, is sort of on a 3rd. So let's do that. There's my 3rd. So there's that mark over there. And I'm going to just extend this line all the way up. All the way up. Remember, these are all line, soft construction lines. They'll all disappear in the end of the day. Awesome. Now let's take a look. Here, this neck piece over here, if I try and find how far up is he, he's also roughly on a just above a 3rd. So he's around that point over there, where that meeting point is over there. Now I'm going to check my angles. So that angle is somewhere like this. And then we've got this guy coming out somewhere over there. I'm getting these angles over here. Let's get that angle over there. Seems to be a little bit more sharper, probably something like that. Alright, so let's now take a look. This guy curls around at roughly that point over there. Now we're getting to a point where we're starting to actually possibly even see a horse there. And it's making it easy for us to judge these little shapes and things. You see that? To get to a point where you can start to visualize your horse. So we've got that, and here's that little darker edge over there, and that little neck piece goes out over there like that, and here's our ears around this vicinity. There's the one there, comes around here. There's the other ear, he comes around over there like that, and then we've got these hairs coming out around this vicinity. So I'm just plotting them out, because what I'm trying to do now is find the position of the eye. And I can do that by judging that the length of these hairs over here. So that eye is probably around here. And then here we've got this bridle coming out there and out there. So let's sketch that in as well. That'll also help us get that position of the eye right. So I think that eye is probably around this vicinity. Can you see I'm just scribbling him in? So it's easy for me to adjust his shape and his size and his angle and all those things. So I'll just keep fiddling and fiddling and fiddling until he looks better. Okay, around here, let's get to that. Here's the nose in this vicinity, more or less. It's all very rough, little overlapping lines. There's that. The one side of the nose is there. We've got that other eye is above this one, so I'm just judging him in that little there. So we've got that, and then around this vicinity here is this guy doing probably a little bit lower down, doing something like that. He meets up with there. Here's a circle over here. I can do a circle. That's not too difficult. But can you see I'm eyeballing that circle in? It's not a perfect circle. It's all just scribbles. And then this guy, he ends up going around there. And then there's another one coming out around here. And then we also have, let's get the bottom of the mouth right. Sort of at that angle. Like that. We've got that line coming out over there, where the top and the bottom jaw meet. Alrighty, so can you see we've got now those initial sketches right. So what have you used there? You've just used angles, nothing else. So now I'm going to use line weight just to finalize this so that I know where everything is and I'm happy with it. So now I'm going over to my 8B pencil, and I'm just going to start sketching these things in. I can see here's a little darker area over there. Here's this oval over here. There's a little thingy over there that goes into the mouth. There's the actual mouth itself. Coming out around here, and the nose. So he's dark over there, he's dark around here. And then there's also a little dark bit over there. Cool. Let's go up here, there, and we've got that eye piece. This is all hair, so I'll get the ear in. All still overlapping strokes. Everything is overlapping strokes. That's quite cool. So we've got that hair running around this vicinity, and there's little shorter ones here, like that. One's lying over there. And this guy curls around here, comes there. Now it's easy. I can judge that guy. I can judge this. Let's get that eye in. He seems to be somewhere like this. There's that little bit of a few little changes over there with your what would you call that? The bottom eyelid piece. There's a bit of a dark area, so I'm going to sketch him in. He's quite prominent. And this guy comes around there, disappears into the hair. And then we're coming down here. Just last little bit curls in over there. Is this little step making sense? Can you see it's still all very loose, very overlapping and so on. Yes, quite a bit of stuff happening over there. There's an extra little guy over there and a bunch of buckles and stuff like that. So I'm not going to sketch those buckles. That's not part of the stage. Just getting myself an idea of where is what. There's that buckle. There's this buckle. Comes in over here. The end of that strap. Here's another end of a strap around here. So I've got my positions. There's the eye. This guy's over here. Oh, and there's that nice, lovely cast shadow over here. So that cast shadow does this kind of a shape. That's around there. Here's a bunch of other little buckles and things, and there's a strap. Awesome, this guy's taking shape really quickly now. Let's get that strap in over there. This guy over here does something like that. And let's pop in these little hairs over here. Just a suggestion of them. Don't need to do it final or anything, just a suggestion. That's great. And there you go. Just like that, we've sketched out the basics of that. Using angles. So let's maybe do that exercise again, but we do it this time with shapes. Let me grab a new piece of paper. Alright, so this time I'm going to start with shapes, and I'm looking for shapes that I recognize. So I can see here by the jaw area, there's a distinct start of a circle over there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just test on the drawing, on the reference itself, roughly whereabout on my paper would that that circle be. So I put my finger down. Let me just use this as an example. Let's say this was my reference, and I'm working from a photo of the screen. I'm going to put my finger down in the center of that circle over there. Let's put the pencil there, it's thinner than my finger. So there's my circle. So now I can see, where does that circle go? So if you're out in the field, you're going to have to just do this mentally in your mind. You can say, all right, so that circle is maybe around here somewhere. So let's judge it at that. And now I'm estimating my size and trying to get that about right until I'm happy, and I start getting happier. And then I can, okay, let's go here. He's definitely around there somewhere. And I've got my eye is probably in this vicinity of that circle as well. Right, what else do I have that I can see? I can see there's a triangle over there. How does that triangle relate to my circle? The one part of the triangle ends up around this vicinity, and then it's above the other one. So you've got a triangle that's running along here somewhere like this. So there's that triangle for the neck. Then you've got more of a rectangle popping out over here at something like that. So let's draw a rectangle. Okay, so there's that rectangle over there. What I'll often do when I'm doing shapes like this, just to get me till I've got something reasonable and I'm reasonably happy with what I've got there, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase some lines that are bothering me, like that one there's putting me off from the actual shape. So I can do that. And now that I've got this, now I can see, all right, it's going to come around here somewhere, maybe a little bit higher, above that circle. He's coming down here. That circle rounds off into this neckline over there. He goes over here. So I'll start using a little bit more weight to these lines. So as where these two meet is that other little triangle that we've got over there. And from there, how does it differ from that rectangle that I've drawn over there? So it comes a little bit around here, and then that angle changes to that because now we've got a mouth. We've got that inside that, and then it's not flat over here. You sort of round it off, more or less like that. Yeah, that's pretty straight. It's straight. So I'm happy with that. And now I can start estimating. Here's a little oval over there. So let's draw that oval in. How does it change from that oval? It's dark over here, and it's dark just outside that oval over here. And then there's a little triangle shape over there again. Great. And then from here we've got, on this area here, we've got this, there's a little circle over there. And from there we've got the strap. So that's also a bit of a rounded triangle. See that? So you've sketched him in there like that. And let's see, now we can start popping in ears. He's also just one triangle with a bow. And here's a triangle over there. And how does he differ from the triangle? He's got a curl. That curls around there like that. Goes down and around there like that. Okay, so now I don't need that circle there anymore. He's a little dark, so I'm going to just soften him up. And let's start finalizing a few things over here. We've got some hairs coming down this vicinity, so our eye is going to be around there. We've got this bridle coming down here, and then down here. It joins up with that strap over there, and we've got this guy coming around here, and that guy coming around there. Here's some hairs doing this. And there's those hairs doing that over there. Okay, so can you see how quickly we've sketched this guy out using shapes? Pretty cool, hey? And now you can obviously, same as the previous one, you can go and finalize him by using your line weight. Get those little lines and stuff that you're happy with, pop them in. Undo the whole thing. You've got the idea. And the more you practice this, the more accurate. You're going to start off and it's not going to look particularly accurate. But as you go along, it's gradually going to become more and more accurate. And you'll find that it's a lot easier and easier to do these sketches like that. So that's what I want you to do now, is go ahead and do as many practices as you can. Sketch the things around the house. Jump onto Pixabay like I just did. And whatever photo that tickles your fancy, just start scrolling. Oh yeah, that one's cool. You know, and that's where you can challenge yourself with stuff, because you don't have to decide. Pixabay is deciding what to say, what to show for you. So I think we're gonna stop there now. We are at the good hour and a half mark here already, and it's a lot of stuff to take in. I don't want to overload you all in one day. So let's stop it at this with the loose techniques. In the next classes, I think we'll get a lot more practice. We'll start practicing the tonal ranges and getting our tonal values and stuff like that. We'll do those kind of practices and so on in the follow-up classes. So I am going to make this a patron only course for the rest of it. So if you do just want to follow me and join me in the course, let's go to there. My website address is down there. Go and sign up over there. It's super affordable. You'll fall on your back if you see how much it actually costs. So then we'll go ahead and we'll do those tonal sketches. Then we'll gradually build on that, and we'll eventually start doing like just random sketches, and we'll do time sketches, and you'll do them with me like you've done here now. We'll put the image on the one side, I'll sketch on the other side, and we both work from the same reference. And eventually we'll build it up until we're even doing some time drawings, 5-minute timings, 1 minute, even 30-second timings. And that'll build you up the confidence and that eye-hand coordination that you need to move on to another course, or you know, doing live drawing and the cartooning and all those kinds of things. You'll have all that basic knowledge that you need to do all those things. You'll have it from this course. So follow the link on the screen there now, and go ahead, join me on the course. Every week we'll load up some new classes, and we'll do all these sketches together. It's going to be awesome fun. Other than that, if you did enjoy the class, please click the like and the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell icon as well, because I want to be able to inform you when I go live again with more drawing lessons. So thanks for joining me in the first part of this course. I'll see you in the next module. Cheerio. Take care. Guys, thanks for joining me in the live class today. I really enjoyed it. It was great fun, eh? Lots to learn, but really great fun. Yeah, the patron membership is you can sign up on the $5 one if you want, but there are yearly options as well. If you want to get it a bit cheaper, then you can go for the yearly option, and that not just gives you access to this course over here. You'll have access to hundreds of my other classes. There's pencil lessons, there's pen and ink lessons, there's also painting lessons, oil, acrylic, watercolor, pastel drawing lessons. And then as the longer you stay, the more courses you get. There's sketching, painting, scratchboarding, you name it. There's tons of different courses. The courses open the longer you stay. The more courses you get access to. It's well worth it. Tracy's saying, very cool. It's great to see how to work shapes into sketches. I've just been practicing doing shapes, but stuck on the next step. Well, there you go. Now you know. Now you know where you're going to get the knowledge you need to take that next step, Tracy. Join me. But you're already a member, right? You're a patron. So you'll have full access to that. Alrighty guys, I'm not seeing any new real questions coming through, so I'll call it a day on that. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next week.